episode today. We got some special guests. We got us.
I didn't know we were in a musical. I don't know we were doing that. I didn't get the script for this shit. Are we singing?
You want to sing?
I'm not gonna sing.
Sing. You low-key got a nice voice, a noise voice.
Yo, really? That's mad.
That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Big week. This is a big week for two reasons. Three reasons.
Three reasons.
Three reasons. A, it's because it's a new week.
Oh. Yes, I guess
B, there's a goat in my house. And D, this is episode 1 of season 2.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
box office moves ahead of us right now.
Box office only. We are right up there competing with Captain Marvel for views this weekend.
That's what I'm saying. And you know what? Big views, big numbers, big scenes.
Yes, just big things.
Yeah. And we like to cover big things. Pause. But Captain Marvel this week.
Got a guest. You have a guest in the
I mean, I thought you said kind of guess.
Oh, no. I said guest.
Yeah, I know. So big movies call for big people. So I'm going to introduce him right now. You guys may have heard of him. What was the nickname we gave him?
I don't remember.
Was it the mailman?
This was, I guess, the mailman.
I guess the mailman. Go ahead, buddy.
Because he delivers.
He delivers
late, but he delivers.
box office results. Go ahead.
Guys, what up? What up? It's me again. I know.
Get comfortable.
Get comfortable? I'm here, man.
Yo, screech the seats together, make noise.
He told me to get comfortable.
Get close to each other. We only had 2 mics and 3 people. Somebody.
Where's the third mic? If you're having guests, where's the third mic?
My laptop has 2 inputs. It can't handle 3. It's not a whore.
I feel like for the second season, you need a little upgrade.
You're right.
This is why we got to start a Patreon soon.
Okay, yeah. And this is why.
Are you plugging already, my man?
Yeah, we're plugging.
Second season and you lost the plot.
Plot losing 101, man. That's what we are. Yeah. Hisham, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm doing fine.
Good to have you here.
Last time I was here was Spider-Man, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't here. All right. Fahad was here for Mission Impossible. That was his last one.
And then Avengers Infinity
and then
War.
Avengers. We're about to do a year.
I'm here. I've been here for the whole year, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
I love it.
Yeah. Good times at the El Royale. All right.
Okay.
Just no standard of journalism in this table. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, as I said before, we're reviewing Captain Marvel. I didn't see this movie. Circumstances prevented me from watching it.
Circumstances such as?
Man, I don't know. This is a rushed week.
Oh, that's crazy.
You know, I didn't tell you guys this, but I was at some meetings this weekend.
For the company?
Yeah, for the quote unquote
for the
company.
cast.
Yeah, for the cast company.
Yes.
Some meetings. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to watch it. Which looks bad because I know there's been a lot of things going against the movie lately, so this looks bad on me.
You're clearly feeding that hate.
Yeah, I'm a piece of garbage. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Season 2, still garbage.
It's the same themes. Really, we're questioning why there's even a difference between the seasons. It's the same shit.
Now, Hasham's wearing a Dragon Ball Z sweater, just to point that out.
Why are you exposing me, man?
Yeah.
But, all right, let's cut to it. I have a few questions. Now, guys, when I ask you guys your general thoughts of the movie,
yes.
Restrain, is it restrain or refrain? Is refrain even a word?
Well, it's refrain from, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Refrain from, yeah.
Try not to,
sentence.
We're getting too technical here, guys.
Try not to give everything away.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, yes.
You know what I'm saying, bro?
Jeez. Yeah, you want us not to answer your other questions by accident.
Yeah, because you have a tendency to do that and steal my shtick.
Well, you know what? I apologize if I answer in complete thought. Sorry.
I feel like there's a lot of tension here.
There is.
Speaking to the mic, Hisham. Go ahead.
I'm here, bro. I'm trying to share this mic with you.
And it's all sexual.
Anyway, bouncing off that, Admir, you're our guy, so you go after Hisham because he's our guest.
I like that heel turn, that quick heel turn. Go ahead.
Well, WrestleMania's coming up, so Hisham, give me your general thoughts because that's what we do here. General podcast. General thoughts. What stood out? And negatives. I could have just said positives.
Yeah, that's clearly a general question, by the way. Give me positives, give me negatives, but only generally.
I feel like that's...
Yeah, I know. I'm micromanaging this a lot.
That's
I would just give general thoughts.
Give general thoughts.
I mean, this is spoiler free, right?
No, you can spoil it. Man.
I could spoil?
Yeah, talk.
Damn.
Yeah, you can take. The
I can
mic
go ham?
closer.
Take your
Okay,
clothes off.
okay. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, the movie was good. I liked it. You know,
You said you wanted a general answer. You better get the most general answer of your
He said
life.
keep it
It's
general.
such a Sham answer though.
It's good. It's,
Fire.
It's
Fire.
nice.
Fire emoji.
It's nice.
No. But
yeah.
for real though.
Yeah.
This movie was a good throwback.
Okay.
There was a lot of things you haven't seen in a long time. Blockbuster, you know, right off the bat. you know. Blockbuster, you know.
Yeah,
That was
critical
great.
to the story is the blockbuster.
I mean, that's her entrance. That's
True.
her entrance.
It's true.
But what's her name? Captain Marvel was
Yes, Carol Danvers. Yes, literally in the title, dog. Carol Danvers. Yes, or Veer, whichever one you want to refer to.
Veer.
Yeah, it's her
Not
Cree
prefer-
name. No,
Carol.
Yeah, her Cree name. Yeah.
She played the role really well. I liked the way she was sassy.
Brie Larson, you mean? Who the hell are you talking about?
What do you mean?
You
I'm talking about the character.
The actress or the character?
Here we go with this technical shit, man. You get the point.
Yo, I apologize for trying to be specific here.
Okay.
The person with the blonde hair, yeah. So
That
not
person
Samuel L. Jackson.
This guy right now.
I'm busting chops.
You busting chops?
I know the things.
I'm gonna bust your chops right now, bro.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Overall, I felt like, I mean, this is just, do I go through a synopsis here? or-
No, I mean, Chris gave a great synopsis to start off the movie because
If you don't know what the movie's about,
What's the movie about, Chris? Because you know
Yeah,
what
like,
the movie's
I
about?
feel like-
You're hosting the podcast of the episode. What's the movie about, Chris?
Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel.
You're garbage, dog. You're
Captain
so
Carvel.
Garbage. Yeah, go ahead.
So this movie was a good stepping stone between the upcoming movie that's Endgame.
Okay.
And I feel like it overall for me it doesn't go in depth as to who Captain Marvel is or where she's coming from or who, like her origin story, but more of it was more of a setup or for the upcoming hype. So. Samuel L. Jackson was great. I loved his phrases that he said. I'm not gonna go into specifics. But yeah, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I would sort of have to agree with you. I think the big thing, if I were to sort of put everything that I feel about this movie in one statement, it would be that Captain Marvel left a lot on the table. In the sense that the film touches on a lot of things, right? And they cover a lot of different topics and ideas of that nature. What is unfortunate is that there's some really good ideas, but they're not fleshed out. And so what you get is 5 inches deep and a mile wide approach to the film, right? Which is fine, I suppose. And at the end of the day, I think this movie will fit somewhere between good and really good, that sort of range. At no point did I think this was a bad movie. There's some the one, I think the biggest negative is sometimes the unclear character arc, and two negatives is the film editing. I think the film editing in this movie is quite poor. And a big issue with that is the fact that it's not even the CGI stuff. I thought the CGI stuff was great.
I mean, the CGI in Fury was amazing, making him look 20 years younger.
That
was impeccable.
The de-aging is phenomenal. It's on him and on Coulson.
Yeah.
So it's great. And even her, when she's CGI'd as, flying and shit, she looks quite decent. So there's very few scenes where you go like, that looks like bad CGI.
But like majority of the fight scenes and the ones where they're in space and whatnot, I wasn't.
Yeah,
it's bland.
It's very bland, and it's sort of Marvel's been hit in the face with this, and rightly so. It's just it just feels like general enemies versus our hero, and that's about it. But the real issue I had was when the fight scenes did take place between people. That's where you really show how well you can direct
There were fights
action.
that weren't people.
When it's just CGI, I mean, right? When it's just CGI, you can just program.
Right.
It's animated essentially. Whereas the fight scenes between actual human actors, right, is where they drop the ball completely on the action, right? So again, my bar for action is Mad Max Fury Road. If you want to do big time action, and then if you want to do close hand to hand combat, you can look at The Raid. You can look at John Wick recently, right? So those films know how to cut action, or actually Daredevil on Netflix.
Yeah. Punisher scene. Yeah.
Yeah, cuts action extremely well. And what do I mean by that is there's a flow. There's a flow to it, right? Where you know who's the bad person, you know who's the good person, and you see the fight, right? It's not a Transformers situation where it's just mesh of things and you can't identify who's who. And slight specific here, but like the first fight scene is when they're going to, the names are going to escape me here, but when they're on the first planet that they go to save that dude who was a spy for them.
Yeah.
Everyone is, first of all, the setting is completely dark. Everyone's looks like they're wearing the same thing, and you can't tell who's fighting who, right? And so that entire action sequence is lost.
It was just a blur. Yeah,
it's a blur.
I feel like the best fighting scene was the one where she had the metal things on her when she was locked in, and she was just trying to break the metal thing through punching the hell out of them.
And that was a really good scene. But like compare that to when she's fighting her what the hell is his name now? Jude Law plays him. Hold on, what the hell is his name? Oh my word.
Jan Rog.
Yeah, okay. When they're fighting in the dungeon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Terribly cut.
I didn't like that.
Back and forth, and there's no flow to it, right? So that was a critique of mine. The character arc you touched on, and you were right, I feel. I don't know who she is. Right?
They really didn't delve on, and I feel like there's a lot of plot holes that they just sort of like sideswiped or just left it on the audience to like put the pieces together. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's where we're at.
Basically, her story is supposed to be, from what the film says, what's clear is the moment she joins the Air Force.
Yeah.
Air Force and after, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
But this character has really very little details about herself prior to that.
To me, it was like Jason Bourne. Like that was the same premise.
Yeah.
But in that movie, we sort of see it from his perspective, and he sort of builds on it as we go, and we learn through his vision. But in this one, we get audio recordings, or she has to go to like some next level spy base and see files, or flashbacks, and it really didn't like add on to it.
Yeah.
I still was lost.
Yeah. Look, to the Jason Bourne thing, there's a great art. I don't know if you're talking. Did you read the Atlantic article about this? Because they actually, okay, so solid point.
10 steps ahead, always.
10 steps ahead.
Damn, you guys really do your research here, yo.
No, there was a great Atlantic article that was a supplement to the original interview, to the original review rather, and it was talking about how in the movie we're driven by this idea of, Chris, I'm completely derailing the general question, by the way. In the film, right, there's this hindrance of her amnesia playing a role in her trying to understand who she is, right? Now, this isn't the first time in film that this is happening, and you bring out one of the best examples of how they use it, right, is Jason Bourne. I haven't seen any Jason Bourne movies, but I get the sense that, and in the article they talk about this, the drive to find out who he was becomes who he is.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's almost, it doesn't matter who he was. It's about how that is now impacting his current state. Right? You could have done something similarly complex with this character. Unfortunately, I feel like, again, it's one of the many examples in this movie where that's an interesting thing, and then instead of delving into it, they just keep it simple.
Yeah.
You keep it simple, and I'm a little bit upset because it's like you're 20 plus movies into this. You can take risks now.
I feel like they have such a high standard now at the point where Marvel has reached. Yeah. I mean, after Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther
and Infinity War. So
obviously.
Those are like the last three.
Like those were the straight bangers at that point. So I feel like this one was more reminiscent of the first phase of Marvel, where it was Iron Man and they're just lifting off and they're just trying to introduce a character and they were just shaky with it.
1,000%. And you bring up Iron Man. I think Iron Man is one of the better examples of Marvel setting up a character, because by the end of the movie, you know who Tony Stark is 1,000% to the core. You know who he is, right? In this one, it's muddled. It's not exactly clear. you know who she is. She's this jokey character. She loves to sort of fight for what she believes is true. Like, one of the key scenes in this movie is how she gets her powers. I think this is so important, and it's sort of, again, I forgot what article I was reading that brought this up, and it was a great point.
My guy reading mad articles.
Yeah, I'm reading. What else was I going to do? An hour commute last night to get home. I was going to read something. So the way she gets her powers in the film, she is being her plane gets shot down with her like doctor best friend who is coming up with this. I'm talking to Chris now, not to Sham, because Sham's seen the movie.
Sham, move with Sham.
and so like it gets shot down, and this dude from Creed, played by Jude Law, is coming up to take this like tank of energy. Yeah, Young Ron. To take this tank of energy that this doctor has created to use for whatever diabolical purpose, right?
So spiders.
So evil things. So her character, right, Carol, sees that he's coming. He's going to take this thing that she's invented, basically, and she takes one. She has a gun in her hand and she shoots the tank, right? And what happens is it explodes, and the energy that's within that thing combines with her.
Okay.
Right? Now, this is a very important way of how she gets her powers, right? We've seen through all of this media of superheroes, we've seen different ways of how heroes come across their powers, right? You have the X-Men who are born with it, right? Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe it's X-Men, who knows, right? They're born with it, right? You have shit like Spider-Man where it's accidentally dropped down on you, essentially, right? You're not really in control of whether you got the powers or not. And it didn't really happen because of one of your actions. It was just sort of a haphazard thing, right?
Right.
Whereas Captain America, Iron Man, and her choose an action that leads to this gaining of power. Right? So you have Captain America says, okay, I'll take the bullet for this one and I'll see what the program's like because I think that's the right thing to do, right?
Inject mad steroids,
right? For the betterment of America. Tony Stark does similar, right? He does similar. He sees what he can do and what that means, and so he does that, right? And he becomes the Iron Man. He decides to fight crime and all that shit. And then you have her, where she doesn't know she's going to get powers, but she believes this is the right thing to do, is to not let this dude take this invention, right? This energy source,
right? And
so she does that, right? And that says a lot about her. It says a lot about how her character's foundation is set, right? This is a person who's driven by doing sort of the morally correct thing, right? Even at the cost of potentially killing herself, right? Now, that's a point that needs to be running through this entire movie.
Yeah, it didn't. Like, now that you're saying it right now, I really didn't think of that scene like that.
Yeah, because it's so quick. There's really no thought about it, and you move on, right? And I feel like, again, it's one of those things where 5 inches deep, a mile wide, where you just, where it's like you just move on to the next thing. Yeah, so that's my general thoughts.
And take 200 of Admir just taking the ball and running with it.
Sorry.
To the next. Yeah.
I didn't want to go for unless you have.
Look. You hand me the ball, I'm running, Chris.
Like OBJ to Cleveland?
No. OBJ doesn't run with the ball, man. He's not a.
He's always running with it now.
Anyway.
To Cleveland. No, anyway. So my fear was that my questions would be devalued now, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, Sham can answer his stuff. I mean, I said my stuff, but I don't know what questions you have.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go
and then we'll have a conversation. It's not about the questions; it's about the conversation.
You know what? So then we'll just have the conversation.
But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead.
So like the second part I wanted to like talk about was the scrolls. I feel like they didn't really delve into that story as much here as well. Another thing that they just sort of could have done more, but they didn't. There's shapeshifters, so I felt like they could have used that power in such a like mysterious way. They could have made like a lot of twists in this movie that they totally missed out on. But I like foreshadowed what would happen because they made it very obvious as to who was who at some point. But they didn't abuse that in a sense. Yeah. They, after that guy transformed into the head of the CIA, we sort of figured it out within the first 5 minutes that this was that guy or whatnot. But
yeah.
I feel like they didn't go further with that, and that
Yeah.
really was negative point for me when it came to that movie.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the Skrulls and the Kree for me is it's very clearly to me a social commentary on sort of the refugee and
Refugees,
migration crisis, right? And it's even more so because the Skrulls literally come into your planet looking like you, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this alien idea to them, and it's essentially again playing on this, present fear in politics we have. We talk about immigrants coming here and taking over and us not knowing who's a migrant and who's not a migrant, right? So it almost feels like they're playing on that. And I enjoyed that. I thought that was cool.
Right.
The pivot of them being the victims, I thought was really good too, because at that point I think the movie becomes a lot better. It becomes a lot better and it becomes a lot weightier because it's almost like, to tell the story of Captain Marvel, I think one of the good decisions was to put her in the middle of this bigger story, right? Which I think you have to, considering her origins, although I'm not too clear on that. She is at the center of this war, essentially, right? And so she can't just be by herself. She needs to fit into this bigger picture. And I think they do enough in this movie to build you that better picture. Unfortunately, for example, the Kree just don't seem all that not evil from the start, where you're like, these guys aren't.
They're not that bad.
Yeah. And eventually, sort of, Jude Law's character starts giving away hints that he is a piece of shit. And
My boy Ronan.
Yeah, and like they're communicating with Ronan, which is obviously the biggest giveaway that they're not nice folk, especially to somebody who hasn't, we haven't read the comics and stuff like this, so we don't know exactly what's happening with them. But I thought at that point in the film, it does get better. It adds this different weight of it's not just about her anymore. It's about sort of her in this role of this war. It's just unfortunately to get to that point, we go through a lot of just hazy amnesia shit that really is a bit like okay, touch and go isn't that important.
For me, I never got the reason why Kree versus Skrull was even a thing. Like they don't really delve on it. Just we're attacking these people. We have to eradicate them.
Yeah.
They're just they're doing bad things. I don't know what bad thing they did.
Yeah.
But I like you said, I really love the messages they were sending through it, like refugees, and then obviously Captain Marvel was a big like feminist for the feminist movement and whatnot.
Yeah.
So all these topics were really, really delivered well to people. But overall, when I'm making a movie, for example, I really want to see a story or a fleshed out story and things like Ragnarok. I mean, I'm comparing it to the big ones now, and that's the standard they set. And in reality, I felt like this movie wasn't like popping in a sense. It didn't have its touch. Like when you walked out of Thor Ragnarok, you were like, wow.
So here's the thing. One of my biggest regrets is not seeing it in theaters.
Exactly.
And I saw it at home.
Like it's a fun time.
I loved it, and I was so upset I didn't see it in theaters. There's moments. There's maybe one or two moments in this movie where you're like in awe, and that's basically when she becomes Captain Marvel, right? Like when she gets her colors is one scene, and the full powers, right? And the full power scene I thought was the best and most clear theme they had in the film, in the sense that she is constantly kept in check by other people. And sometimes through her own flaws and failures, right? Yeah. And so she's never able to hit her stride and become unrestrained and herself fully, right? And this is from the start of the film till the end. It's basically this idea of you need to keep yourself in check, keep your emotions in check, and when you fail, you're not gonna be able to get up unless we help you. You won't be able to do it by yourself. So it's a little bit cliched in that sense, but it's very clear. And then at the end, she becomes the all-powerful Captain Marvel when she takes off that little gadget thing
I don't know
on her
what
neck.
it was.
That they probably used to keep her powers in a certain threshold, because if she overdid it, they wouldn't be able to control her, right?
Yeah, right?
And so once she gets rid of that, she goes full blown sort of, peak Captain Marvel. She starts, Sam Jackson makes the joke about her glowing.
Love that guy.
Yeah, he was fantastic in the film. But like I thought that was very clear, and I think if you're going to deliver that message of somebody who's, and this, you can look at it as a feminist message, but I can look at it as it's a humane message in the sense that you're going to be held down by other shit and by other people. And this obviously fits.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no, this obviously fits more to the female demographic because they face these challenges and obstacles more than men, right? So I get it, and especially because she's a female, right, in the movie. But at the same time, this isn't a message that gets lost to the male population. You watch this movie and you go, yeah, this is a person who's failing but getting up, right? That's the big
You could apply
theme.
it to more than women at this point.
Yeah, so this is a theme that I thought was clear, and it was there, and it did help the character because when she does hit her heights of her power, it's great. But those moments of like set pieces, I think there's only one. I think it's just the one at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, generally, I didn't leave, like, this movie, usually when you see a Marvel movie, there's a theme to it. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, you walked out with that retro feel, and, you know, like when, like in Infinity War, every time the Guardians of the Galaxy come on the screen, you have that retro music in the background.
Yeah,
like, you get that director's touch to that scene for what he had for that movie.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, I'll go for another example, too. Thor Ragnarok had that Thor with his snarky comments, and he would, like, when the fight scenes happen, there'd be this comedic effect to it. But this one, it was just bland. I mean, I all her fight scenes, I've seen things like that several times. All the scenes, I felt like the actors were just in that scene, just doing the act, performing their lines. There wasn't just really any I think there's very few characteristics in this movie that help it stand out. I think, and ultimately that's why it'll be a little bit more forgettable. I do think that the things that'll help it stand out, right, is that sort of that theme I mentioned of that empowerment. One. Two, I think, is a supporting cast. I thought was great. I really love the supporting cast. Literally everyone that was around Brie Larson did their business. And I think any criticism layered put at Brie Larson's feet have to be pretexted with the fact that this is not a deep character that she could work with, right? She did not really have a strong sense of motivation to help drive this character, right? It's muddled, right? But nonetheless, supporting cast, great job. The origin story is good enough. I feel like
it's good.
It sets it up nice for what's coming up in the next thing.
It's good enough, and you know. Ultimately, I think you're very correct in the sense that this just feels a little bit phoned in, and it's bothersome because, you know, Marvel takes risks with some of their directors, like the director of Ragnarok, Taika. I can't say his last name. Taika, let's just call him that for now.
Yeah, good first name basis. That's fine.
I know him the first name, but he's a great dude. He's hilarious. But he made that movie the way he wanted to make it, and it had a certain flavor. And some people vehemently hated it. But at the end of the day, I would rather you make a movie that you think is a flavorful film and a representation of your creative palette than something like this where it's just forgettable. Thor Ragnarok will never be forgettable to A, the people who loved it, and B, the people who hated it. Because you're going to remember very specifically why you feel those things.
Of course.
Whereas in this movie, I feel like, number one, if people hate it, you're probably going to hate it because of the outside politics that have been driven
the messages
out of nowhere. Or B, if you love it, it's because I think you fall in love with that theme or her, right? I don't necessarily feel like you're going to fall in love with this film, right? And so that's why it's, for me, just a lot of stuff left on the table that they could have delved into. You could have approached it with a different, as you say, with a different creative spin. And it, like, you know, Thor Ragnarok has that retro feel, right? Guardians of the Galaxy has that 70s soulful vibe. Black Panther has obviously that African root to it. Infinity War has that grand scale, massive.
I mean, they lived up to the hype.
Epic thing. The first Iron Man has that 80s rock feel to it, right? So
AC/DC type things.
All the big ones, and then when you look at the ones that are a little bit more like, what's going on in there? Like Ant-Man. What's really the flavor of that movie? Doctor Strange, kind of here and there, right? And usually, usually my rule of thumb is listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Just listen to the soundtrack and see if you can pick out interesting music in the soundtrack. If you can, there's a good shot the film had a certain flavor to it. I've listened to the Thor Ragnarok soundtrack multiple times. Black Panther soundtrack
Guardians of the
multiple
Galaxy,
times. Guardians of the
100
Galaxy.
times.
Yeah, the first Iron Man, right? There's a flavor that's driven by the music. And I mean the soundtrack and the score. You can do both.
Right.
And I do mean both. It's not just put in popular music. Like I think they do in this. They do it in this movie where they just put in 90s popular music. And I'm like...
And expect it to just jam.
I'm just like, it doesn't really, like, I don't know. Does it fit? Does it only fit because it's in the 90s, or does it fit because of the character? Like, if you look at Tony Stark, AC/DC fits Tony Stark because he's a you know a
An edgy
loud
guy,
ass
like-
edgy douche, and it fits him, right? That music fits him. The Thor Ragnarok didn't necessarily fit Thor, but it fit the colors and the mood of the film,
course.
right? Same thing with Black Panther. Obviously fit the character very much so, right? And it ended up winning score, not for no stupid reason, right? Because of that. I don't see the score, for example, being memorable. Because, again, it's just sort of generic sounds put in to just fill in the screen. And unfortunately, when you have such a good cast, and this is what bothers me, like you have Samuel L. Jackson, right, who is revered in Hollywood.
And Samuel L. Jackson for the scene,
He kills it,
He
man.
killed it. I mean, he talked a lot in this movie compared to other movies where he just comes in with like 3 lines.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Wild bottle
Just-
over
just
there.
wild, yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, his lines,
Yeah.
the funny things he'd say. I mean, I was having a great time with him and the cat.
Yeah. Ferglin, something like that.
Oh, you're going for the.
I have no idea.
His name was Goose, man. He could have just went with the easier one. Goose.
Yeah. I think, it was great to see Nick Fury before he became like this hard ass.
Call him Fury. Just Fury.
Just Fury. Yeah, it was great to see him. And then you have him, and then you essentially have Brie Larson, who has won an Oscar for her performance in The Room. In
What was that? What was that?
in
Chris.
the film
Triggered.
the film Room, not The Room, but Room. Very different films.
Get him, Chris.
She was great in it,
Cat.
man. I saw that movie, and you see glimpses of how good she is in this one too. I'll tell you my favorite scene, hands down, is when she's talking to her best friend.
Oh yeah.
Hands down. And Marvel does this. They'll have these great quiet moments between characters, and we love that. I love that shit, yo. I'm telling you, as much as we come for the action in these movies, Marvel is able to drive home the point that their formula works because you have character moments, man. Like, I'll never forget in the first Avengers when they're all together in the ship, just shit talking each other. It's great. It's great. It's better than any of the fighting in the rest of the movie,
Yeah.
even though that's really good. I'm more interested to see how these characters interact with each other. Like the Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson interactions were
Amazing.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
They
I
were great.
loved
They
it.
were so
What?
good. You know what it is. Put money in the jar. It was phenomenal. It was good. It was really great, man. And
Slight plug there.
You
I
see this. You see this back and forth between them, and it works, right? And then it works with her and her best friend from the past. And the actress's name, I don't know who she is. Let me see if I can pull it. Oh, see, it's
Well, the preparation is just.
Lashana Lynch.
Monica Rambeau, played by Akira Akbar. No, wait, no. That's her daughter. Sorry,
Lashana
Maria.
Lynch. Lashana
No.
Lynch.
Lashana Lynch.
Maria Rambeau.
Yeah, Lashana Lynch.
That's-
I loved her in this. I loved her in this. She's got these quiet moments with her that are so important and so good. And the dude who plays, again, here we go with the names. The guy who plays the Kree, the Skrull leader.
Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah. He is top notch in this.
Talos.
Yeah, he's top notch in this. I love him in this too. So you have the supporting cast doing their job. Brie Larson's good. You got a good setup of an origin story. It's just untapped potential.
Yeah. They could have done a lot more.
Which ironically is the theme of the movie, untapped potential.
But there's also one last point. Do you feel the way there's things that came up from previous movies, like the Tesseract and stuff like that. Do you feel like they downplay? Also Fury's eye getting scratched.
Yeah.
All those, like, their answers to that question of how that happened or how that ended up there. They really, like, just watered it down in my sense.
I'll tell you, I hear you. I hear you. And I think the complaint is valid.
Right.
It's a valid complaint if you want to point to it. Here's why I don't personally care. The way the Tesseract is handled has zero to do with the story.
Right.
So let's say instead of putting it in a lunchbox, they put it in a secure box. Who gives a shit, right?
I guess budget.
It doesn't.
Budget.
Like to me, that's Marvel's misstep of always trying to be overly jokey.
Yeah.
Right. And so people sometimes are tired of it. They overstep that line, and that's a fair critique.
I'm not gonna like crucify them over it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not, but at the end of the day, this is something that belongs on a gauntlet. At the end of the day,
I completely hear you, and I think we've had examples of other people who try to hold it and they get messed up.
Of course.
Although Captain Marvel holding it doesn't really bother me. I mean, if you're gonna get bothered, it's because it's in a lunchbox, not because she's holding it.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
Yeah, she is who she is. But it's the lunchbox. And the thing with Nick Fury's eye again. How Nick Fury loses his eye has zero. Who cares how he loses it? Imagine he lost it in a fight. Ooh, okay. Yes, what you could do is that can become part of the character. I think it's just a missed opportunity. If you're going to get upset, I feel.
Of course.
It's just a missed opportunity to tell more about the character, right? Whereas if you do it in a jokey, hokey sort of way, it just sort of devalues what we think
thing.
was supposed to be an important thing.
Because
right?
like in Civil War, he goes. I mean, he had a conversation with Captain America.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye."
Yeah.
Turns out it's Goose. Scratches his eye like.
But I'll tell you this, I laughed my ass off.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, I had a good time. Don't get me wrong.
There's a fake out. There's a fake out of him where his eye gets hurt in the car crash.
Yeah.
And you think that's going to be the
like
reason.
he had a scratch above his eye. They were closing in on it.
And it's not. He ends up losing it because of the cat. Which to me, it's almost Marvel trying to be too funny. And
right.
they have this problem. They have this problem of always like, you're funny. Can we just move on from the joke? But it's like, no, we're going to beat it to death sometimes, and then we're going to move on. And this is just one of those issues, right? Mm-hmm. It's just 20-something movies in. I've gotten used to it by now where it's like, okay, how the Tesseract is handled has zero to do with the story.
Put it in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to...
Like, that's it, you know?
Yeah, this was like the same critique people have for like Star Wars. This is a similar critique.
Yeah,
where it's
I
like,
mean, at that point, it's like nitpicking it, but...
Yeah, I mean, some people feel it's nitpicking. Some people feel like, well, you know, if you're gonna establish certain rules within this universe, then keep to that rules. And they're not wrong. Again, they're not wrong. I feel like if you did it, it'd be a better product overall, 1,000%. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, that's an issue. I have a huge problem with it. It's just I've come to overlook these things because if you're going to cohesively tell 22 movies in a row, you're going to have little discrepancies.
Of course,
you're going to have little things that you need to give up. Right? You need to say
no one's a perfect planner.
No one's not. Like I've grew up with Christopher Nolan's Batman showing you.
Chris?
Did you make Batman?
No words.
No comment. I'll refrain. But yes. No, like I grew up with that trilogy being one of my favorite film superhero sort of series, and you know the third one is absolutely bonkers. Dude just ends up in a hole, then he's out of a hole, and then he's in the country. I'm like, okay, you have to chalk that up to what? To him being Batman. It's just what it is. This is the universe we live in, right?
I'm Batman,
right? So it's fine, right? And again, it's a valid critique. I just personally choose not to look at it because it doesn't impact the greater story as a whole, right? It's great if you could do it. Like I've seen very detailed films. I can bring up recently I started watching Game of Thrones, right? Where the little details. What?
No.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. Have you heard about it? It's a show. It's a pretty good show.
Vikings?
I think on PBS.
Oh, okay.
It's for adults though. Just be careful. Where it's like the details. The details in that show make it better than what it could be, right? And this is sort of the same thing here, where it's like the details in this movie could make it better, but they don't. They don't choose to look at the details. And I think that'll be all I have to say about that.
But okay, so in the last point I feel like we should address here is
go for it.
This lead up to Endgame.
Oh, right.
All right, you know what? Let me ask my question because it.
Go ahead.
It goes.
Chris, I'm sorry.
It's
Chris.
okay, man.
Are you still here?
It's okay.
I thought you were in the bathroom.
My fault.
Damn player.
See, this was my question. I guess you answered like half of it.
That's cool.
Oh, only half.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. We're able to answer all these questions.
So the thing is, like I feel like the movie had a lot of things going against it. I think it was just the hesitation of just a female lead at like such a big superhero movie.
I don't think so. Why do you say that?
No, I mean that's what I've read some of it, and I know Brie Larson was
Okay.
trying to protest against that, and it might have been like the male thing too.
Yeah, I mean,
There was a lot of politics. I feel like going into this.
there was a lot of vitriol thrown at this.
What the hell does that mean? What the hell? Not everyone goes to NYU, Mir. What the hell is this?
Let me get the good definition. Vitriol, not vitriol. Cruel and bitter criticism, as in her mother's sudden gush of fury and vitriol. You want to spell it?
The R2 Definitions Podcast.
The R2 Cents Dictionary Podcast. Welcome. We just observe words.
All right, well, rebounding off of that,
Yes.
I wouldn't say there were cruel criticisms. I think that's a little...
Yes, there were.
was
They
cruel?
literally, this movie, before it came out, had more reviews than all of Infinity War in its first week. You tell me.
I mean, I don't...
How's that a thing?
Again, I haven't read the reviews. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess
That is vitriol.
the context of it is cruel.
Yeah.
Enough with that word, dog.
Well, because it's unfair criticism.
No, it is.
Like,
It is.
the-
I'm just...
yeah.
I feel like cruel is a strong word. But I guess now that you bring that up, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll agree with you. Jesus. So, yeah, there's that. There's the politics game around it. And I do think that this being the movie before Infinity War, kind of like...
Before Endgame.
You're
Yeah,
right.
it's stupid.
Infinity War 2. and
Volume 2, Part 2, Episode
yeah,
2.
just twos. So there was a lot of stuff going against it. And I think... Because I do think Wonder Woman was, like... I think it broke a lot of barriers, but I think that was a little more smaller scale, which is why I don't think a lot of eyes were on it as much as Captain Marvel. And it is like... There's also that criticism that this might be a filler just to get her in for Endgame, because I've read that.
Okay.
So how do you think it fares with all of those factors in it?
Okay, the political shit is nonsense to me. I didn't see in anything in this movie where if you are going to this movie looking for politics, you'll find it. Just like you can do in any movie. You can watch Game of Thrones and you'll go like, oh, it's politics. And of course there is, right? We tell stories about the things that are happening in our world. That's just how shit works, right? So no wonder the film is going to have things like that. Number one. Number two is the Infinity War bit about Infinity War again. The Endgame bit about how this is leading up to it, right? And how it fits into all that. I have no problem with this being before Endgame. In fact, I enjoy it because it gives us a chance to pause after all the crap that was Infinity War happened to say, okay, this is a prequel essentially to everything you saw before Infinity War. It's an interesting place to present the character.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that she's presented at this point in time.
The last movie before this was Ant-Man and the Wasp, right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Was it?
Yes, it was over the summer. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
and the
yeah.
Wasp.
Really?
After
Yeah.
Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
But Ant-Man and the Wasp chronologically fit before Infinity
before
War.
Infinity War. And then
Okay.
Captain Marvel
Yeah.
was obviously before all this.
Everything. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I have no issue. And the big thing, the reason why they put her now is because of her supposed strength as a superhero, where she is now going to be the main, well, I'm assuming one of the main reasons Thanos loses, right? She will be the driving point.
Well, spoiler alert.
Wow, spoilers,
Come on,
right?
bro.
It's not like it's in the comics. But you can't give us her, in Infinity War, because then we'll be like, well, why didn't she kick his ass?
Right.
I don't think she's going to straight up just kick his ass in the movie either.
Oh, hell
She'll
no.
have
That would
her
be a
issues.
disrespect to Thanos.
Hell yeah.
She'll have her issues. But ultimately, I think she'll be one of the main reasons why they end up being victorious. And then what was the last thing?
I think he was
Was
trying to say
politics in
comparing
Infinity
it
War?
to the other movies such as Wonder Woman, where
Oh, right, the small scale. Yeah, this had a lot more going for it because guess what? This is the movie before the biggest superhero movie of all time.
right.
Maybe the biggest movie of all time. Let's be honest.
It could very well go and crack. I mean,
It is gonna crack.
Infinity War did $2 billion, so this is easily doing $2 billion, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
a lot of money.
So to say that,
like that.
it's a lot, and Wonder Woman had its own challenges because it was the first of many things, and so it had those challenges, but it didn't have the weighted expectation of you are literally the biggest thing before the biggest thing, right? So that came with its own set of
I feel like
expectations.
they both had to face different like challenges
Yeah,
or whatever. But-
absolutely,
So,
yeah.
so I feel like not from the perspective of being the first female movie,
Yeah.
but as opposed to being just the build up, the correct build up for Endgame.
yeah.
And this one, Wonder Woman, I feel like had so much weight on it, not only because DC has been
Yeah, it was
very
in the-
terrible.
it was in the dumps
It was in the
critically for a
dump-
long
and this
time.
was them looking for a comeback, and
Yeah.
also it being the first female lead
Yeah.
movie. So both of them delivered in a sense.
Yeah, I think
in their
Wonder
own
Woman-
challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I watched this film and I go, it failed in setting up Infinity War. I mean, god damn it!
Yo, you
Setting
too
up
right
Endgame.
now.
This is my fault.
Setting up Endgame, right? I'm just gonna write it on my hand. Setting up Endgame, it didn't fail at all. It succeeded.
I also feel like there was more pressure on this one because I feel like with Wonder Woman, yeah, like it had a lot to like live up to being the first female dominated superhero movie, but being DC being in the cracks that it was, it didn't have a lot to lose. You
Yeah.
understand? I feel like if it failed, it would be like, all right, it's DC.
I agree.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
I mean, potentially. I would have hoped if Wonder Woman didn't do well, which it did, thankfully. If it hadn't done well, right, it wouldn't have been because it was a female-led film, right?
Oh,
and I feel like
no.
a lot of people who want to spin that story would have spun that story, right? Whereas. With this one, if it would have failed, it would have almost squarely been at the feet of, it's because it was a female-led film. And that completely got blown out the damn water. Critically, it did well. It did okay,
Yeah.
which is fine. And considering...
For a
it's-
DC movie? Come on. Did way better than expected.
Oh, I'm talking about Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Oh.
Yeah, it did well. If you compare it to the other origin stories, it did at the same bar as almost all of them, aside from Iron Man. So in that sense, I have no reason to criticize it. And perhaps that is it. The expectations might have been why they took the direction they took in this film, where they said we're going to sort of not make it its own crazy, unique thing.
So safer.
Yeah, because we're going into Endgame where it's like, let's just introduce her. Let's show what she can do as a superhero. Let's give her some story, but nothing too crazy. And then maybe we discuss what happens with the Skrull and Kree in her sequel.
Right.
Right? And I think we get more of that later on in her story later on. And that's fine with me. Right? It's just we can't keep giving passes to films because later on we're going to get more. We have to criticize it for what it is in front of us,
yeah.
right? And that's what we're doing here. Yeah.
Like
So-
the bigger picture, yeah, it's a stepping stone.
Yep.
More like that. That's a good summary of it. If I were to say it's just a stepping stone
Yep.
for Endgame. But I really won't. Like, I can't let it go because the
Yeah.
standards Marvel has set. I would expect them to give me something to remember this movie by, in a sense. So yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Chris, or are we doing scores?
No, that was. I think you guys tackled.
Okay.
everything. I mean, albeit I didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I know the whole movie now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we're going into scores territory.
What the hell did I give Aquaman?
Oh.
A 9.5, I think.
Sounds about right.
Wow.
No, I think you gave it like a high 6,
Okay, I might.
maybe 6.5, 6.
I put it
Probably
around
give
that
it a
region.
6.5.
Well, I mean,
I hope I gave
take
it
the
like a
mics.
6.5 ish, hopefully. But yeah, go ahead, Sean. What's your score?
So this out of 10?
It's out of 10, baby.
I'd give
With
it
a
a
decimal.
Would that
Yeah,
One decimal place.
one decimal
One
point?
decimal
You
place.
could do decimal.
7.2.
Oh wow, okay, that's fair.
7.2.
Yeah, I was gonna go 7.0. 7.0 is my score for movies that don't tilt me in other direction too
Yeah.
much, and they don't do a lot wrong. So-
I walked out having a good time.
Yeah.
But it didn't walk. I didn't walk out fuming like Batman versus Superman type thing. You know, like
God,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, like that. Two different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, 7.2.
Good.
So,
I was wrestling. It was either going to be between 6.8 or 7.2 for me. That was like my range. Yeah, I'm going to sit squarely in the middle.
I like that, holding it from the middle. I like that.
It's a
In the
man,
middle,
of,
man.
man of yeah.
Man of averages. Yeah, so I'm sitting on the 7. I'm going to go with the 7. Yeah.
Wow.
And what this means is
Oh,
we have Shazam.
Oh, and now that I'm hyped for.
I'm just whatever about it.
Exactly. The fact that I'm so whatever about it makes me so hype about it.
That's great,
Like I don't
man.
have to have expectations for it. I'm there
To
for
enjoy.
a good time.
Yeah.
For a long time.
I don't like the way you think, man.
That's all right. You just got to respect me. That's
All
it.
right. Sign us out?
I had a good time listening to your guys' voices.
Yeah. We appreciate
I'm
you.
aroused.
That's great.
Oh.
Anyway. All right.
No. Finish, bro. Finish. I just.
That was almost an instance where me and Amber drink water at the same time. It's been happening for like 3 weeks
Awkward
now.
things, yeah.
But yeah, Captain Marvel, got some green reviews here.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
green zone in
the
Cupid
green
Path.
zone. In the green zone.
But yeah,
Passing grades.
check us out in Mirror Take It. I don't know.
Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. I mean, I haven't uploaded to SoundCloud in ages. SoundCloud and YouTube.
Yeah,
Those are the
we're
5.
slacking on the tubes, but
Thank you, Chris. That's your job.
Sham, you any plugs?
You guys can follow me on Instagram, #HeshTheMan.
Spell it out for them. Spell it out for them.
Sorry, yes.
Yes,
I was
go ahead.
popular, you know.
Yeah,
I was
you're
popular.
right.
I'm verified, bro.
Come on.
HESHDAMAN. And
There's no point in us plugging in our.
Well, I'm at the Blue Yank, so hit me up on there for very shitty opinions on most things in life. And then, Chris, what are you?
I don't know what I am.
All right, that's cool. Well, if they can find me, they can find you.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll leave it at that. Thanks for hanging with us, Asham. Always a pleasure to have you in the
Thanks
studio.
for having me, guys. Thanks
in the
for having
studio
me.
/basement /ping pong table.
Well, he's
arena.
gonna be back for Infinity
Who
War.
knows? Are any of us gonna be back?
am I going to
Infinity
be
War.
live?
There, I said it again. Endgame.
L
Game.
L game.
He's also gonna be back for the Game of Thrones review. Anyway,
Ronin game.
Yes, rolling game. Thanks for hanging with us.
Sham, go ahead.
Thank you guys for having me. Peace.
Deuces.
Oh, it's Deuces here? Oh, Deuces.
I say peace.
I say deuces.
Yo, excuse me.
All right.
No, what's the final word?
See ya.
Bye.
Holler.
Deuces.